going to do the by graphing. We'll do by substitution and by elimination. Let's see, so you're going to do exactly what you did by substitution. So in place of this y, I'm going to write this value. So I would have x minus 3 equals, everything on the other side stays the same, since I just substituted the value of y. Everybody got on that part? And now you're going to solve like you normally would. We want to get this side equal to 0, so what would I do? Add 3. Okay, which number would I add 3 to? Yep. What else could I do at the same time? Subtract x. So which one would I subtract x to? Good. So over here, I would get 0. Over here, I would get... Okay. Is there, now you would just solve like we have been. The first one we always want to try to do is factor, because that's the easiest. Is there anything that I could factor out of all of those terms? I could divide everything by 2, right? Or pull out a 2. So this term would be... Okay. Now I look inside the parentheses. Could I factor anything in here? So I'm looking at factors of 1. That would give me 2, right? Factors of 1, that would give me 2. So 1 and 1 would work. So then I would have 2 parentheses, x plus 1. And then could I just write squared? It would be the same thing, right? Okay. That's equal to 0. So now I would just set my parentheses equal to 0 to solve for it. So do I need to worry about this too? No. So I would set x plus 1 equal to 0, and I would get x equals negative 1. Okay, I don't have a second solution because my 2 parentheses were the same. If I was to have 2 parentheses like this, I would set each of them equal to 0, and that would give me 2 answers, right? Okay, so I only have 1 because my parentheses were both the same. So now that I know what x is, what do you think I'm going to do to figure out what y is?
Plug x in.
Where?
For the bottom equation.
Does it matter which equation?
No, but whichever one's easier.
Perfect, so whichever one's easier. So I'm going to plug y equals negative 1 minus 3. So y would equal, so my final answer would be negative 1, negative 4. And then if I had 2 solutions, I'd plug it in x twice and then solve twice. Make sense? Okay. The other way is by, let's see. The other way is by elimination. Oh, sorry, this is that one was by graphing. This one is by substitution. We'll do this one again. So again, what do I sub in for y?
Negative 2x plus.
Good. And that equals x squared plus x minus 1. Now what would I do to get this side equal to 0?
Add 2x and minus 3.
Add 2x and minus 3. So over here I would get,
0.
here I would get
X squared plus 3x.
and what could I factor this? So factors of negative 4, that would give me, 3, right? Negative 4 and 1. Positive 4 and negative 1 would give me 3, right? Okay, so I would have x plus 4 and x minus 1. Now what did I say to do with each of those parentheses?
Equals 0.
So x plus 4 equals 0, and minus 1 equals 0. So x would equal, yep, because we'd add 1, so 1. So then again, what do I do with those values? Plug them back in. Yep, the bottom one's going to be easier. So y equals negative 2 times negative 4 plus 3. Negative 2 times negative 4 would be plus 3 is. So my final answer for that one would be negative 4, 11. Now I have to do it for the second one. So y would equal negative 2 times
1.
1 plus 3. So negative 2 times 1 plus 3.
1.
So this answer would be 1 comma 1. Questions on substitution? Perfect. Now, this example is elimination. Okay, so by elimination, that's when we try to get one of the variables to be the opposite. It's always going to be easier to get one of the y's to be the opposite and cancel out. So what I mean by that is there something I could take this equation by to cancel or to get the opposite of a positive y? Times negative 1, right? I have to remember I have to take the whole equation times negative 1 though. So negative 1 times y would be equals negative 1 times negative 3x would be negative 1 times negative 8 would be, okay? So then I have my y's opposite on my equations now. So if I was to add these two together, would one of my variables cancel out? Would one of my variables cancel out? If I take a negative y and I add a positive y, I would get
0.
0. So that's always the goal with elimination, is to get rid of one of the variables. Now, is there anything that I could add x squared to? No, so it'd just be x squared. What about 3x? So 3x and negative 3x, but that would equal 0, so I'm not going to write it. And then I also have 8 minus 2, which is 6. So now we just solve for x. So how would I get x by itself? Subtract 6. Subtract 6. So I'd have negative 6 equals x squared. Now I would square root it. So x equals what?
No solution.
No solution, because you can't have the square root of a negative number, right? So the answer to this one is just no solution. Okay. If we do another elimination where we actually get an answer, number 8's not pretty, but it's okay. Okay, if we look at number 8, I want to get one of my y's to cancel out. Which one do you think I should try to cancel out? I actually might change that. Let's do number 5, even though it's substitution. It'll give you a pretty answer. So number 5, which one do you think I would try to get to be the opposite? The top one, y. I would always say we always want to multiply, because we're going to multiply by negative 1, correct? So if I multiply by negative 1 on this one, my
Quinn Jensen and Carson Colclaser and Kelly David Rich, please report to the office.
my x squared stays positive. You always want to keep your x squared positive. So I would always distribute the negative to the one that doesn't have the x squared. So if I distribute my negative, I would get, good, and I'm just going to write it under that term. So now I add them together. A positive y plus a negative y equals
0.
And then what do I get here?
X squared plus 2x.
Good. Now, since I actually have a middle term, I'm going to see if I can factor on this one. So is there something that I could use the factors of negative 3 to get 2x? So negative 1 and positive 3 will give me a positive 2, right? So then again, I would write my parentheses. So I'd have x minus 1 and x plus 3. Now what would I do?
So most of them is 0.
So x minus 1 equals 0, and x plus 3 equals 0. So my x's would be
1 negative 3.
good. What do you think I do now? plug them back in, and I would use the top one too. I wouldn't use the negative part, I would just use the original. So you would have y equals negative 5 times 1, which would y would equal, so my answer would be good. And then I have y equals negative 5 times negative 3, so I would get y equals 15. Good. So these would be my two answers. Questions? Okay. All right. You have the rest of the time to work on homework.